It was a shared dream destroyed by this one piece of information.
You know it's prostitute place. You know! You know!
She's at the bottom of the pool. We don't have any evidence of who did it.
There was a mystery woman in the driveway after her death. So could that be the real killer?
Samira Frasch was born in Madagascar, actually into a life of poverty. But Samira had big dreams.
Over time, she moved to Paris, and she became a pretty high-fashion model.
And she met this man that she thought could help make those dreams come true.
Adam Frasch grew up in Ainsworth, Nebraska. From a pretty early age, he knew that he wanted to be a physician. I'm Dr. Joni Johnston, a clinical and forensic psychologist and private investigator. I spend most of my time working with violent offenders. He apparently had foot surgery when he was growing up, and that seemed to have somewhat of an impact on him because he decided to become a podiatrist. He enrolled in Des Moines at the University of Osteopathic Medicine, where he eventually earned a degree in podiatric medicine in 1992. He then landed a residency in Tampa, Florida. He ended up moving to Tallahassee. He actually specialized as a podiatrist in this kind of unique skin grafting procedure for people with diabetic foot ulcers. His personal life was a little bit tumultuous. He was married a couple of times. He ended up having 4 kids with his first 2 wives. But his professional career was booming.
Adam and Samira actually met in the summer of 2006 at the Paris fashion show. I'm Professor Donna Youngs, and I'm an investigative psychologist. Adam was still married at the time, but separated.
He actually met her at a bar, and they hit it off, and sparks immediately flew.
Mrs. Frasch was there trying to pursue her dreams of becoming a model and a singer. Mr. Frasch was there just on vacation. I'm Georgia Kappelman. I'm an assistant state attorney. So they dated long distance for a couple years until he secured a divorce.
They then got married in Las Vegas before having a huge formal ceremony in Madagascar. They had the kind of level of wealth that is beyond the imaginings of the everyday person.
He had multiple fabulous homes. They had lots of designer, everything. You know, you name it, they had it.
Adam and Samira lived in Golden Eagle. It's one of the more affluent neighborhoods in Tallahassee. It's a gated community. I am Jason Newland. I am the chief investigator with the state attorney's office in Tallahassee, Florida. Their house was quite nice. Pool, screened-in porch on a lake. One of the odd things, though, was the amount of cars they had. Adam had, I think at one point we count 81 cars registered to him.
That included things like Ferraris and Maseratis. We know that in their home they had gold tables and marble everywhere and thrones and stuffed taxidermied animals everywhere.
They even had a portrait of, I believe it was King Henry, but with Adam Frasch's face in the dining room.
Their bedroom, I don't even know how they got into it. It was so cluttered, but they had probably 7 layers of curtains before you actually got to the window. None of it was cheap. It was all very expensive, and they had a lot of money in that house.
Samra is in a brand new country, and she's primarily French speaking, so she is adjusting to this new life with her new husband. She's also pregnant. One night, the phone rings, and she picks up the phone, and there's a woman on the phone who wants to speak to Adam. And Samra wants to know who this woman is. And she finds out at that point that while she is in Paris, thinking they have this relationship that's monogamous, Adam has fathered a child with another woman. And this child is now 2 weeks old.
Now this would have completely devastated Samira, I think. These two had created this enormous fantasy world together. And it was very much something that depended upon each other. They depended upon each other to make this world possible. To make the fantasy possible, they needed each other. And they built this kind of crazy fantasy bubble of royal portraits and gold thrones and mansions and unbelievable wealth. And then just something like this could burst the bubble of all of that. Although this must have seemed like such an enormous world that they had built together, it was actually incredibly fragile.
Immediately things began to crumble, this vision of what she thought life was going to be like here in Tallahassee. She was furious, finding out that he was unfaithful. She threatened divorce, but he talked his way out of it. He talked his way back in with her.
I think that it's likely from this point on that she is always suspicious of Adam. And that is such a tough place to be in. But this is not somebody who turned a blind eye. I mean, this was a woman who wanted to find out the truth. And this is somebody who would look at his phone, go through his computer, call up people that she didn't know who they were. And I think on the one hand, that's certainly admirable. I also think it's such a difficult position to be in, because I think that behavior just reflects the fact that you're with somebody that you don't trust and that you can't trust.
Mrs. Frasch was a good wife. She was dedicated to her husband. She was very dependent on her husband. She moved here without any support system. And then when the girls came along, she was an extremely dedicated mother.
They were ordering $1,500 pacifiers. Not a bunch of pacifiers that totaled $1,500, a $1,500 pacifier.
The two of them both wanted the children to become famous babies. They hired someone to follow them around when they were on vacation, pushing a gilded baby carriage with their little girls inside dressed to the nines, and put that on YouTube with the idea that these girls were going to become famous.
She was ahead of her time. Today, she would have been a TikTok star, Instagram star, or something. Everything was documented, everything. From going to the grocery store, going to New York City, every little simple thing was documented. They were gonna be famous some way, somehow.
This is her idea of, I think, combining her own ambitions, in some ways channeling them in to her daughters.
This looks like the picture-perfect marriage. The wealthy, eminent, handsome doctor and the Parisian model and singer living together in their palaces and then having beautiful babies. It looks like the perfect relationship. But actually, we've got two competing egos.
It's interesting to me that he's a collector of things. He's a collector of furniture, a collector of houses, a collector of cars. And in some ways, he's a collector of women. Almost like he can't get enough. You know, he's always getting more and more women. And I think these extramarital affairs for him was a reflection of that he's always looking for more things. He's always looking for something better or something different. That's not congruent with being in a monogamous marriage.
Many times, she would actually reach out to Adam's female acquaintances and almost befriend them. She knew Adam was cheating on her. She knew Adam was running around.
I think Samira will have responded by competing more for Adam, by triggering, in a perverse way, her passion. We know that this was a very volatile, passionate relationship. And these were two people who were fighting each other. But they were involved in an intimate relationship. So I think that the infidelities will have profoundly hurt Samira, but they will have also added fuel to the fire. I would even go so far as to say that he probably loved Samira, but nowhere near as much as he loved himself. They're not the kind of people who want to need anybody. It was always going to be really a perpetual battle. This was a relationship that was a battleground.
Things would be good one day and things would be terrible the next. I mean, everybody knew what the triggers were. The triggers were generally a female that Adam would be caught with. But outside of that, it was anybody's guess if it was going to be a good day or a bad day in their relationship.
It was a really toxic relationship, a cyclical relationship where it was passionate, so they would have high highs and low lows, but when the lows happened, they became increasingly violent.
There were a series of enormous arguments, of big blow-ups. And I think as part of these, we see Samira will have felt that she lost some of her dignity, her self-control.
And you admitted you've been in here before.
I did
So
not.
you
You said
know
it was kind of a
exactly
weird
what
club.
you're doing.
I said I went there because
It's prostitute place.
She was bold. She would approach him, she would confront him. She had no qualms about saying, I just went and ran Erica out of the hotel room. Or, here's a picture of you and Chiquita coming back from the Super Bowl. Or, hey, I called Martha today. We went and had lunch with the kids. She had no problem with throwing it in his face. I think Adam was a very short fuse, and those would lead to quite violent eruptions. Samira went to jail for the domestic battery. I guarantee you that was started by confrontation about another female. There were videos of the two arguing all the time. arguing at the gate to get into the neighborhood, arguing as they literally drove down Thomasville Road. You can see her pull her phone out and film him because he'd speed up by her and drive over and try to swerve her off the road.
It's clear that Adam's wealth was the dominating factor in this relationship. He had this incredible power over Samira because of his wealth. And in particular, she was somebody who didn't really know her way around how the system of how to get away from him and not lose everything, and possibly didn't fully understand that she didn't necessarily need to. So I think that Adam's wealth was both something that drew her to him, there's no doubt about that, but it also held her captive.
It helped her take care of the kids. She was going to continue to try to live the best lifestyle she could, but it was good and bad. Money sits on both shoulders, the good side and the bad side with this one. She was able to survive, she was able to take care of those kids, she was able to kind of keep those kids afloat without things completely falling apart due to their financial stability.
She was dependent on him financially, but it wasn't just that. She had no family, no friends, no understanding of the American system. And he would tell her, if you leave me, you will never see your kids again. And she believed him because she had no access to lawyers or money to try to secure her kids or the marital home or a path forward if she was to make a decision to try to leave him. So I think she was kind of stymied by that for a long time. And then the tables began to turn as she started to figure that out and started to get her bearings and secured herself a lawyer and started to make some headway in the court system.
I think females pushed it over. She continued to catch him. He'd come crawling back, I'll get better, I'm gonna change my ways. And Adam was really flailing then. He wrote "I love you" in $100 bills on their bed as one of his ways of getting her back in love with him, or trying to.
He's almost saying, I can buy you back, I will buy you back. It's so clear that he believes that even now he has the power to regain Samira because of his wealth. He still believes that his wealth will trump everything. It can buy him anything and everything, including Samira.
I absolutely think that Mrs. Frasch securing custody of those kids and primary possession of that marital home, and she was getting alimony, and she was getting child support, gave her the upper hand and shifted the balance of power.
Gerald Gardner was the family handyman. He was around when Adam was allowed to be at the house. He'd been around the family for a while.
Samira normally picked him up for work. She had not done that. He had gotten a ride in. So that was somewhat unusual in and of itself.
When Mr. Gardner arrived at the Frasch residence, he knocked on the door. Nobody came to the door. He walked around the home.
And as they entered the pool, the screened-in area, they observed Samira in the bottom of the pool. Immediately, Gerald Gardner called 911. Firefighters actually arrived first. A firefighter jumped in the pool, removed her, put her on the patio. They began life-saving measures and transported her to the hospital. By the time law enforcement arrived, she is gone. She is on her way to the hospital. Her robe is still on the side of the pool. But then you have a hose that is kind of strewn out along the patio, thrown into the pool, And then the pool has a little ledge that you could sit on. Underneath that hose right there at the ledge is a sandal, a closed-toed sandal, single closed toe with a strap around it. And then in the bottom of the pool is another sandal. It was almost as if she tripped and fell.
It was common knowledge that Samara did not know how to swim. And so you would think that at first glance it would be, okay, there's been some terrible accident and this person wound up in the bottom of the pool. But that is not what Gerald Gardner thinks. He immediately thinks that somebody has killed her.
Gerald Gardner called 911 and said, I mean, it was almost immediate in the call. He did it, he killed her.
As police look around the scene, what initially appeared to be a clear-cut accident becomes maybe not so clear-cut. They notice that the shoe seems to be kind of carefully placed underneath the hose. It has a strap around the ankle. So there's concern of like, how did she just slip out of this shoe? So they're starting to wonder if there's more to this scene than initially appears.
Law enforcement was familiar with this residence, familiar with these two, so we had a name that we could put it with immediately. But that was really all we were working with.
Mr. Frasch indicated to law enforcement that she was alive and well and in bed asleep when he left her. He said he and his wife had reconciled, that they had had a nice evening the night before, that she had gotten a little intoxicated on a couple bottles of champagne. They had made passionate love, and then she had gone to bed. He woke up and he decided he would give her a break from the girls by taking them for the day.
She was gonna wake up later in the day and she would travel over there to Panama City because she had consumed so much alcohol. She was hungover and gonna have a rough day. We take him into custody for interfering with child custody. She was presented sole custody of the house and sole custody of the children. And by sole custody of the children, it was no contact with Adam Frasch. He is not allowed around the kids. The medical examiner determined the cause of death was blunt force trauma and drowning, not or drowning. It's blunt force trauma and drowning.
The medical examiner called the case a homicide, and that was primarily because Mrs. Frasch sustained major damage to both sides of her head, which, in the medical examiner's opinion, could not be caused by falling and hitting your head in the pool. The evidence suggested that Mrs. Frasch was struck with a hard object on one side of her head, whereby she fell down and struck with the other side of her head a flat object consistent with the pool deck or the floor. And then she was still alive as a result of those injuries when she was placed in the pool. She couldn't have gotten into the pool herself after sustaining both of the head injuries that she had. Somebody had to put her in the pool.
We went worldwide trying to find who could help us with time of death based off of a drowning. We tried everything. We tried to use the wrinkles in your fingers when you're submerged in water. Literally, worldwide medical examiners we were calling, can you give us a time of death with this information that we have? 10 years ago, nobody was willing to come off of a time of death. We needed to know the temperature of the pool at the time of death. It was cold that morning, but he had a pool heater, so did he turn it off? Did she freeze? Was it warm when she fell in? We had so many unknowns that we couldn't work with to establish a time of death. The only evidence we have of her being struck is the blunt force trauma. We don't have a timeline. We don't have any evidence of who did it. Matt Christensen is trying to be a good Samaritan. He is a neighbor that walks frequently through the neighborhood.
He claims to have been on a walk the morning that Mrs. Frasch's body was discovered. So shortly before her body was discovered, he claims to have seen her alive in the driveway.
He said, I was walking through the neighborhood with my stepdaughter, walk by that house all the time, and I saw a black female, tall, skinny, athletic build, with red pants getting in the passenger side of a black SUV. Well, what time were you walking? You know, he was walking around 10:45 in the morning. That threw everything out of whack. Adam has left the neighborhood at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's in Panama City for 45 minutes by then. We've tracked his phone, track him to a bank in Panama City. We see where we withdrew a significant amount of cash. The kids were on that video. The two children were running around the bank in their pajamas.
Adam had a type, and he dated women that looked like Samara Frasch. There were other women in his life that fit that description. So could that be the real killer? So now, as a prosecutor, I'm in the position of having to chase these women down and establish alibis for all of them to eliminate them as the potential real killer.
Nobody had a reason to kill Samara. All of the females that we interviewed that contacted her, that she knew were his side pieces, they had nothing but good things to say about her. She offered to help me, she offered to pay, she offered to buy clothes, she offered for food. She had no problem spending Adam's money, but she was also, she wanted to help people, and I think that came from the background she had in Madagascar, where I don't think she was very well off over there. If she could help somebody else, she was going to do the same. Nobody had negative things to say about her. Nobody benefited from her death. We pulled the tag on every single vehicle that went through all three gates in that neighborhood, identified them, spoke with the owners. Did you have a legitimate reason to be in the neighborhood? 90% of them were residents and they had a legitimate reason. But we identified all of them, and all of them were ruled out. The only black SUV that we could associate with that residence is the one Adam Frasch was driving when he drove to Panama City. The only way I can ever explain the eyewitness is you have the wrong day. I'm sure you saw something. I am sure you saw the two of them arguing and fighting. I think you have the wrong day. I think it was the day prior, because it would make sense. If you were walking by the day prior and you saw Samara getting in the passenger seat, she's a tall, athletic build.
Well, there's a couple of things that just immediately start working against Adam Frasch's story. One is he spontaneously says to the police, "Oh my gosh, I hope that she didn't trip over the hose and fall into the pool." And this is somebody who, from his story, left at 8 in the morning with the girls, with Samara sleeping off her 2 bottles of champagne that she allegedly drunk. So it seemed very odd to police that he is essentially painting a picture of what the scene looked like.
He's just rolling these little scenarios, and as we piece things together, we go back to the scene and we're like, well, the hose is thrown out, the sandal's stuck under the hose. Did he put this together? Did he set this scene up? The fraud was to the extent he was billing Medicaid as if he'd see a senior citizen patient twice a day, every day of the year. And these were multiple patients. At the time, he would have scored somewhere around 14 or 15 years in prison alone, just on the fraud.
We start seeing the peek behind the curtain.
When Mr. Frasch was apprehended in the driveway of his home in Panama City, his first words were, "Is this about my wife? Is she dead?" Mr. Frasch had received a phone call advising him there was police activity at his home in Tallahassee prior to law enforcement pulling up in Panama City. But even in light of that, it's a pretty odd thing to utter, "Is this about my wife? Is she dead?" Why would he assume she was dead? He had no way to know that. He had with him $5,000 in cash, which we had him on video at the bank that morning getting that money, and he had the girls with him. It was early in the morning. It was a little unusual for him to be doing anything that early in the morning. It was definitely unusual for him to be doing anything with those 2 girls by himself, and he was also legally not permitted to do that at the time. But another thing that was really odd was that the girls were in their pajamas on the surveillance.
Everybody who knew Samara said that her girls were dressed to the nines on every occasion, and that she would not step out to the grocery store without her girls being dressed fashionably. And so the fact that when they find Adam Frasch with his 10-month and 2-year-old daughters dressed in their pajamas, this again is out of character for anything that Samara would allow. They also find in the car a number of passports, including passports for the girls. Their suspicion at this point is that he is planning to leave.
So during Adam's drive to Panama City, he was calling Samara. He's, "Hey, I just want to check on you. I hope you're doing okay. I haven't heard from you. Are you awake?" And he would call multiple times. We would learn that the phone he's calling is traveling about 1.5 feet behind him in the diaper bag in the back seat. He has taken her phone and he is calling the phone in his car with him.
It was consistent with being in a fight. He indicated that no, that was the baby that gave him that scratch.
We actually spoke to the medical examiner about that, and she goes, "No way." The way she explained it, the child's fingernails aren't strong enough to have caused the type of scratches that were underneath his eyes.
The toxicology reports revealed a couple important things. One is that Samara Frasch did have her husband's DNA inside her, consistent with them having had sex the night before. And 2, she had his DNA under her fingernails, consistent with potentially there being a fight. The third thing that was really compelling from that report was that Samara Frasch did not have any alcohol in her system, meaning Mr. Frasch's story that she drank 2 bottles of champagne the night before, and that's why he needed to give her a break the next day so she could recover from her hangover, was a lie.
Samira was by this time living in considerable fear. She had an innate sense, I think, of what Adam was actually capable of. This was somebody who knew what was possible.
She is apparently doing things like parking her Hummer on the lawn so she can literally take her girls and run inside. She has been telling people that she's afraid of him.
Samra was contacted by one of Adam's female acquaintances, and she was told that this person had a sex tape containing themselves and Adam.
She's offering to sell this to Samra as a weapon for her to use in the custody battle with him. She's saying, for the right price, I'm going to give this to you, and then you can use it to get Adam.
Samra was offering thousands of dollars she was willing to pay to get a copy of this sex tape.
This apparent sex tape falling into Samira's hands would have allowed her to get the upper hand, and this is not something that Adam could have tolerated at all. This video sex tape, not only did it actually allow Samira to escape finally, but it also will have allowed her to take considerable amounts of Adam Frasch's wealth as well. It reinforced, it bolstered Samira's position, and this would have been something that Adam could not have tolerated. But more than that, I think the sense of Samira somehow getting the upper hand symbolically will have been something that triggered something very profoundly menacing within Adam. This will have been something that will have activated absolute fury within Adam.
Adam's already losing. Adam's losing his family, he is losing his house, he's losing his business. The federal investigation into the Medicaid fraud is actively paralleling ours. And now you've got somebody offering a sex tape that is going to truly damage your divorce and probably cost you a lot of money. So whatever money you had legally is probably going to be gone. You're going to lose your wife, lose your kids, lose your house, lose your money. And Adam was reeling at that point in time. I actually think that led to the confrontation, which led to the homicide.
I think the most compelling evidence against Adam Frasch is his own words. Gee, I sure hope she didn't trip over a hose and in her cheap flip-flops and drown in the pool. Coupled with their history and the circumstances leading up to her death, I knew I had the right guy. Dave Folsom is what we refer to as a jailhouse snitch. Mr. Frasch and Mr. Folsom were cellmates at the Leon County Jail. Mr. Folsom was going to be getting released shortly, and so Mr. Frasch enlisted him to do something for him. And the something was go to the house, the marital home, and find a golf club or golf clubs and dispose of them. Don't keep them for yourself, don't give them away, don't sell them. Throw them in a body of water, get rid of them. Now, this home had already been subject to multiple search warrants. It had been turned over to Mr. Frasch's family, so the contents had been emptied. We go there, and by God, we find a golf club. We send it to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for testing, and on the club face is Samra Frasch's DNA. It was touch DNA, skin cells. The medical examiner was aware of the testimony and the evidence surrounding the golf club, but still, in her opinion, felt that the murder weapon, or the thing that impacted Samra's head, was probably not consistent with a golf club. She felt that it was more consistent with Mr. Frasch's hand or fist. So we really didn't have conclusive evidence one way or the other what the importance of the golf club was.
The best we could figure maybe at the time was Samra was pushed out into the pool a little further with the golf club, maybe how we got there with the DNA. But I believe when Dale testified, he said that Adam said he hit her with the golf club.
I was really relieved when the verdict was read, because it was a hard-fought case and I really did want to provide some justice for Samra. I also just felt like, with no family members here, I just felt like I was kind of the only voice for Samra in that courtroom. I anticipate he probably will deny till you die, as in my experience, all domestic abusers typically do. That's sort of their shtick. They don't really think they've done anything wrong. You know, she did something to cause it. I think he's all about control. He's all about showing the world how important he is, how wealthy he is, how extravagant he is.
Adam Frasch did not have the capacity to think beyond his own needs and his own drives and desires. This was a man who was so blinkered in his perspective that all he was capable of thinking about was what served him, Adam, at any point in time. So I don't think it will have entered his head that he was depriving his children of their mother.
I will always question whether or not he actually loved Samra. I think he met his match with her. I definitely think she was one of his toughest relationships. I truly feel like he treated her like a possession almost, and he lost control of that possession, and this was the result. If I can't have you, nobody can have you.